A few days ago, I made the most un-Ed Bolian car purchase in my life, and it's something I never expected to say, but I leased a brand new electric car. This 2024 Audi RS E-tron GT, which is a lot to say for a Porsche Taycan Turbo S, but that's exactly what it is. It is the top of the line, fastest car Audi has ever sold to the public. And I didn't plan on buying it, but a very good friend of mine, Nick Underwood, who some of you will recognize from the story where he bought a new motorcycle coming to work with me at Lamborghini Atlanta and then crashed it immediately into the back of a Porsche Panamera and destroyed his face. But we've stayed good friends, and he is now the general manager of Audi of Birmingham. And he called me with a ridiculous lease deal that I explained on the VinWiki channel that effectively made this car cost about as much as the brakes and tires would have cost on my wife's GL63 for the year. And so I did a 1-year single pay lease on this car for nearly no money. But why did I want one? I really wanted to experience what the EV car life is like, and today we're going to take it on a drive. And like I said, I am not a champion of leasing new cars, but I do talk a lot about Premier Financial Services. They're one of our long-term sponsors at VinWiki, and their lease is very, very different than a new car lease. And it's important to make that distinction because I am renting this car from Audi Financial Services, but that's not exactly what happens when I set up a simple lease with Premier Financial. That gives me the tax benefits and the ability to write off the payments like I would on a new car lease, but it applies to used exotic cars. And so they don't do deals like this, and they wouldn't want you to. I wouldn't want you to in most cases, but more and more every day, these ridiculous lease programs are popping up on electric cars because they are sale-proof. But are they worth driving? Let's get in and find out. The other day, my 3-year-old noticed the white hairs growing out of my face, and she said, "Daddy, you are old like a turtle." And nothing makes me feel older than driving this car and thinking about how different it is from the cars that I love. But you know, you get around these EV disciples, and it's like the Wall Street bets evangelists. Like, we get it, bro. You like the stock, but I don't really get the electric car obsession. Now, I understand the practicality and the use case and all of that, but I love internal combustion cars. And so the reason I got this one was obviously because it was a phenomenal deal. But I was really interested in what it was going to be like to live with and drive one of these EVs. And this is certainly a great example of one. It is really, really fast. However, as soon as you go fast, it does this. It starts to beep. And in order to stop it beeping, to let you know that you're speeding, you have to almost die by pressing all of these buttons and scrolling over driver assistance, small gear icon, traffic sign speed warnings. Otherwise, it beeps every time you exceed the speed limit by 1 mile per hour. I've never owned a new car. This is a very new experience for me and for my wife, who really drives this thing most of the time, because I don't know, I don't really want to drive it. I really didn't want to drive the Lusso for the same reason. It was just too good, and it made me not drive the cars that I really, really do enjoy when I embrace my automotive masochism and get into an aging, broken, exotic car, and that is what I love. But I do understand the momentum here, even though these cars have been utterly sale-proof. We did a market commentary video on VinWiki a few months ago, noting the unbelievable depreciation of these ultra high-end electric cars. And certainly the Lucids of the world and these things, they're just not flying off the shelves the way the government seems to want them to, or the way the dealers need them to, or the way the manufacturers need them to, in order to satisfy all of the expectations of sales that have been set for them. And so when Nick called me and said that this car could be bought as cheap as it was, I said, why not? Let's try it and let's see. But at this point, they're practically accepting Kohl's cash for these EVs because no one is walking in trying to pay $160,000 for an Audi RS E-tron. Now that being said, it is pretty impressive. I mean, it goes 0 to 60 in 2.9 seconds. It goes, I don't know how fast it goes on the top speed, but I've had it, faster than I probably should have, fast enough to make it ding a lot. And it has effectively, I think, 637 horsepower, so more than an LP640, and I've got my wife hauling my kids around in it. But, it's kind of like what a Thai restaurant would call white girl spicy. Immediately, it's shocking, but then the fact that it's a 7,000-pound car that brakes like crazy kicks in, and you realize that the speed isn't really that impressive. It's a novelty, and you do it a few times, but then you start to realize that in the last 2 miles, we've consumed 15 miles of electricity. And so, at this point, with the charging networks that are developed, there is a manageable way to own an EV in most of the United States. My wife drives 10, 15, 20 miles a day, and even with the factory included 110 charger, that will replenish overnight. Now they say this car has like 280 miles of range, but the car also tells you that it's irresponsible to charge it beyond 80%. Now, on a leased car, that doesn't matter, so we charge it to 100%. But that would mean that you're only down to like 180 to 190 miles indicated, which if you drive like you want to in a car that you can just press and go, then you barely go anywhere. But for around town stuff, especially if you get a fast charger installed at your house or if you have access to one at work, it is functional. But that's really what it is. It is a functional car, like a prison spork. I mean, yes, it accomplishes the task, but I would rather do it with the more traditional implement. And that's why whenever I've been in these cars historically, and whenever I'm in this one right now, I like the comfort, I like the newness, I like the smell. I've never had that before, but I just miss going back to the Stone Age and driving the Lamborghinis that I love. If you crash into a normal car, especially a compact car that could weigh well under 3,000 pounds, it is going to utterly decimate that vehicle. There's no accommodations for that like risk to society. And we see these Teslas burning down, but in the week or so that I have owned this car, my Tesla driving neighbor back there just threw up his hands wondering what we were doing. When you see these Teslas burning to the ground and the fire department can't figure out how to put them out, I don't even know where you're supposed to cut, like the wires and things, to make this thing stop catching on fire. And I think that's really what, infrastructure-wise, hasn't been solved yet, is the fundamental awareness of how these things fit into the world. And that's going to take some time. It's going to take some of the government intervention that we've already seen with the policies that just make it so inexpensive to own these cars. It just steered for itself. I hate, and I don't even know how to turn it off. Stupid new cars, man. Put me back in something without traction control. Even though it won't do that. But now I'm done. I don't need to do it again. Look at that. Oh, slow down. Yeah, this is now beeping at me. Everything beeps. Oh my goodness gracious. Got to unplug my daughter's electric car and then plug in my wife's electric car. And that charges like a mile an hour.